I never know whether to put the UK in Europe or not, but I'm just going to talk about Europe, and I am going to include the UK in that bucket. So FTSE 8.2, then 10.5 now, up 27%, which isn't crazy that far off the Yanks. The stocks, Europe 600, 524 then, 643 now, up 23%. UK 10-year gilts, 4 roughly then, nearly 5 now. BV base rate, 5.25 then, 3.75 now. UK inflation CPI, 2 to 2.8. So we haven't done that badly on the inflation side. European unicorns, 500 then, 717 now. Decacorns, maybe a handful, including Northvolt, which we can bypass, 11 now. H1 venture funding in Europe, 29 billion compared to 45 billion, up 53%. However, 10x smaller than the US, and we all know why. AI share of European VC was 18% 2 years ago. Now it's about 54%. I guess that depends on how you define an AI business. One business to highlight, Revolut, 45 billion then, 75 billion now, good for them. Helsing raised at 5, now raising at 18 bill. Europe's share of global VC, 16% now, 16% then, 8%, halved as Absolute rose. So that's quite an interesting thing to maybe duck into. And as Mads, as you mentioned, Bitcoin from 60 to 60, roughly peaking at 125, and the Chinese open source, they have absolutely made some inroads, but we're going to talk later about whether they're going to continue to do that. But Mads, anything on the Euro side, highs, lows, good, bads, indifferent? How would you frame the Europe picture?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting is that while the European venture market has really grown, as you outlined, in terms of capital invested, in terms of the unicorns created, in terms of kind of all the good numbers we'd look at, the share of capital has still halved from 16 to 8%. And most of the gap is really down to 2 Silicon Valley companies, right? It's Anthropic and OpenAI that have been absorbing masses of capital.
Well, a lot of this is skewed. A lot of these figures are skewed by, these mega deals, aren't they? So I think that has to be, and also the other thing that has to be taken into account is that a lot of the deals that we saw in Europe were actually American investors. And I don't know, we haven't quite covered that, and I don't know if we should, but carry on, Mads. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you didn't. That's okay. You should. That's part of your job. I think it's all good. U.S. capital investing in Europe, it's fine, right? It's great. They're great opportunities. I think that just validates the quality of founders that are here. I think the test over the coming years will be to turn even more capital into productive companies. I think we're seeing that grow. We have been showing that Europe can produce lots of great unicorns. Decacorns, as you're saying, are up, and now we need more capital to come into the ecosystem.
My takeaway is we have absolutely proven that Europe deserves its place on the map with regards to quality of founders and businesses. Whoever invests, wherever they end up, I think that has been, for the last 2 years, that's been my one key takeaway.
I mean, I think you're right. Europe's producing more champions, but we're still losing global market share. So like capital's coming back, more capital's coming in, but global relevancy for those companies, we're not there yet.
Don't you think that will change as we start moving away from hyperscaler focus and foundational focus into applications?
Well, first of all, that's a great question, are we going to move away anytime soon from that foundational technology? I think for the near to medium term, the winners are still going to be those that can keep building and leapfrogging on the technology side. Another way to look at this is through the things that make this possible and make the ecosystem possible, because, our winners got bigger, but as we've just talked about, the overall ecosystem, like comparative to what else is going on in the world, hasn't. I think Europe doesn't have a startup problem. To your point, Dan, we've got the smarts, we've got the founders, we're even starting to feel like to have their ambition. But we don't have a startup problem. We have a €1 trillion pension allocation problem. We're back to the hobby horse problem.
Lomax, AI went from 18 to 54% of European VC. Is that too much, you think, or too little? What's your broad kind of big picture take, and then maybe come back to the AI in Europe question?
Broad picture take is largely the same. It is largely similar to what you guys are saying. And very simplistically put by me now is, we in isolation in Europe look at the improvement in many of the metrics in terms of unicorns created, decacorns created, funding rounds, and then more subjective, like quality of founders and quality of projects and companies. And we think it's kind of improving by 25, 50% per year, whatever number you use. But the problem is that you know, the goalpost has just been moved so far by what's gone on in the States. If you take in the global context, and you talked about the number, you know, European number of funding dropping, even though it went up 50%, it actually went from 16 to 8% as a proportion of global funding. It feels like technology, and I know Andrew kind of like loves to sort of say, you know, technology basically is everything. Like, you know what I mean? Technology is politics. Like, it is everything. And well, I mean, yeah, you know, which is, and it's increasingly becoming the case. And so the turn of the wheel that we've just gone through in the last 3 to 4 years, driven by LLMs, but now going into, you know, robotics and like space tech and this new generation of hardware and energy technologies, Europe feels like it's missing the boat again. I don't want to be a bear, and it is consistent, unfortunately, with the outside ventures thesis. Is like, unfortunately, I do worry that Europe is becoming a kind of like emigrant thesis, which is that actually, yes, we're producing unbelievable people. That's better. And that's the one thing that all of us are consistently seeing on the ground. Like, better people are being drawn to entrepreneurship. The entrepreneurs themselves like get better and better. And that is amazing. But I just feel it's very, very, very hard against the backdrop that we have of the sort of lack of ability to put risk capital to work in meaningful quantities. It's just we're kind of fighting this like battle with an arm tied behind our back. It's a bit depressing.
I'll take the other side of that.
I'll
take the other side of that. I don't think this mirrors what we see on the ground at all.
Okay, tell me.
If you go back 5 years, I'd absolutely agree with you that the route, the traffic was all one way. But the proportion of serious founders we see in Europe now saying we want to build in Europe has exploded. The amount of capital that's coming in has exploded. The amount of unicorns and decacorns that are being built. We have 8 new decacorns in 2 years. That's phenomenal. That's twice as much as we had in all history going up to those past 2 years. No. I would totally take the other side of that. I don't think it all is going the way you're saying. I think it's the opposite. I think
but isn't it a volume thing, Mads? But isn't Lomax's point that it's the volume and the speed of change?
It's a relative.
Point is also, it's you've had 8 new decacorns in Europe. How many decacorns have you had in the US in the corresponding period? Right, so the goalpost just keeps moving.
Yeah.
So if you want to create a decacorn company out of Europe, sure, it's easier to do it now than the past. But arguably, anyway, I don't like.
No, but it's also can these companies stay European or can they stay UK? Are the government contracts going to come? You see the US moving ahead as it does. On to Lomax's point, we don't seem to have a clear path ourselves. We seem to sort of belatedly copycat US strategy. And until political leaders understand that these foundational technologies, AI, space axis, quantum energy, are the only game in town, like we're going to still be in trouble. We're going to be a customer, not a builder. We won't catch up. And we need to be on a war footing for this. There needs to be, I think Lomax's urgency is absolutely right. Because Mads, we've seen a great improvement, but improvement is not enough. And we tend to look at this, we tend to go, oh, but look how well we've done. Aren't we doing well? And it's like, it doesn't matter like whether internally we're doing well versus ourselves. What matters is whether we're doing well versus what's happening outside of Europe, and whether we're able to whether you believe that independent sovereignty is important or not, right?